Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And we are in Long Beach with Ollie. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to be. We've just recently met, and the more I get to know about you just online, the more I'm like, oh my God, this guy has done everything. So,
Thank you.
where do we start? But um, but no, I figured it would be great to hear more about because you have your PhD and with a very strong focus on the world of research and so forth. And so I thought we'd learn a little bit more about the business side of what you do.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about both what your history, what you've done work wise, but then also I think you mentioned you're starting a new company as well or a new venture.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about that. So essentially, I grew up in Orange County, and when I basically got an interest in diversity issues from my upbringing because I grew up in a post 9/11 world. So I was getting exposed to things like being called a terrorist, and I was being exposed to all this Islamophobia. So I started to learn about inequality and how that worked. And what happened was when I was an undergrad in college, I found this one instructor who would later be my writing partner for a book that we would work on later.
Yeah.
And essentially, what would happen is she would sort of teach me about how research and finding things out can lead to social justice, and basically being able to sort of really find out things about the world around us can really impact the way people view it. So what ended up happening was I ended up getting my PhD in sociology, and particularly I specialized in fitness and inequality and masculinity issues, but I eventually became involved and interested in research that focuses on activism within Black women communities. And so basically what I did was with that research, I ended up getting together with my writing partner slash former mentor, and we basically started a book together that focused on how and why Black women AIDS activists engage in activism.
Oh wow, wow. And that's led you now to what you're doing now, which is you had mentioned that a lot of what you're doing is trying to help in the world of LGBT, kind of not just the idea of coming out and so forth, but also just a lot of it related to the workplace.
So basically, in general, like I see the world as somebody that wants to change the world for the better. And I really want to help people who feel marginalized, may they be sexual minorities, racial minorities, or anybody that feels disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Because again, like we're dealing with the system where people can be fired in their workplaces. We're dealing with the system where, people's marriage isn't recognized by certain people. So, I wanted to change all that. So, what I ended up doing was I started getting Wolfie LLC. And basically, we're a consulting firm. And basically, what we do is we basically help those involved in telling stories in terms of like how are those stories told, what kind of data and information that you can get from those stories. So basically, my mission is to help those within the market research world or even other parts of entertainment tell other people's stories. And so, for example, what we do is I basically develop courses for people in market research and journalists and media folks to actually start finding ways to represent diverse stories within their particular fields. So, for example, if a market research firm is interested in marketing to the LGBT community, basically I can help them understand like, okay, so like these are the ways that you can ask questions in qualitative research, so then you can get specific forms of data in order to help develop your brandings and that way. Not only that, but I also then look at the question of issues of sample sizes and all these other things that that sometimes confound market researchers. But yeah, and then not only that, but I also think that another source of change is not only in advertising, but also in the way that our stories are told in the media. So basically, what I do is I help folks that are journalists, that are podcasters, YouTube artists, and other content creators in order to sort of represent diversity and equity issues on their like specific venues and platforms. So again, like applying similar techniques sets to their actual jobs, and to sort of help them get the same similar skill set to actually be able to interview people that come from outside their bubble in order to start to forecast and tell their stories.
Yeah. Well, storytelling's been a big part of your life, I think. When I was going through your website, I realized that you've written a lot of stories through for almost every one of the LGBT media out there, and but also you've had a lot of stories written about you, including the New York Times.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work I've done so far. So, in addition to being an academic, I've also been involved in basically community development, and community support,
Yeah.
especially engaging with LGBTQ and sort of alternative sexuality communities. So, I've done work with, for example, the leather BDSM world in order to sort of promote not only safe sex, but also raise awareness about HIV/AIDS and also questions about diversity and equity issues within alternative sexuality spaces.
Yeah.
And so, given that trajectory, I mean, I did not a lot of nonprofit work, specifically fundraising with a group called Onyx, which is a leather men of color group that promotes inclusion and diversity within leather communities. And not only that, but I also ended up becoming a title holder, which was basically like the Miss America of the leather world. And so I was Mr. Long Beach Leather 2016. And so through that platform, I was able to raise awareness about the issues of diversity, equity, and being able to work with different communities in order to sort of fundraise for HIV and AIDS.
Yeah. No, that's what I was getting at the beginning. I said quite varied. Yeah, you're you have the geeky side, as many of us do, and then you've got this whole other, you a title holder for a Mr. Leather contest. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that like the way that I sort of think about it is, I think that for the way I see myself as somebody that wants positive social change, especially for people who feel like they're underrepresented. So I feel like in different aspects of the work I do, I'd like to be able to bring stories that feel like they're marginalized to the forefront of our conversations, especially with, at the time of this recording, there is this sort of existential threat to gay marriage and the fact that and especially Roe v. Wade, to the point where our rights can be taken away as LGBT citizens. So I think that the work I do really speaks to the sort of time that we're writing or that we're sort of talking about, because again, these stories need to be told about the fact that people are discriminated against based on who they love.
Yeah.
So in essence, like I want to be able to do the community work, which is basically the work I do with the business side with my sort of academic background, which is the sociologist, professor, researcher side. So, I mean, ideally, I think the idea is to sort of bring about social change through the way that we represent and talk about stories. And so hopefully my business is able to then address that gap for those of us that also want to continue to protect, sexual minorities and other minorities as well.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this is great, and like I said, these are short, sweet, and I was really happy you're able to join us and be able to share kind of a little bit about what you do and so forth with our audience. And I travel to LA a lot, and I look forward to being able to connect in the real world one of these days soon.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think LA is just like a great place to learn about questions about equity because you have so many like types of people here. You have people in like so many different economic statuses. You have this huge, vast, beautiful migrant population from different countries, from different diasporas. And it's just amazing where we're able to kind of see like these sort of stories being told of like, well, I've gone through these hardships and now we're here to kind of give a better life for the next generation, as sort of my grandparents did when they ended up leaving Burma because their family was they're basically their businesses were taken away by the government, so they ended up having to move to Pakistan, then they ended up moving here. So again, like I think that LA is a great place to sort of get this sort of background of like how we can actually how we can actually see everybody's stories and where are they coming from, even though you see the business person on the street, that person has a story behind it. Maybe they were in the Midwest and like they grew up in a very conservative family and they were shunned because of their sexual orientation, and so they're living in LA, making a killing in the marketing world. But I think that again, like this is a great place for these stories to be told, especially not just in LA, but in places like New York and these other places, these other hotspots within the country.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I agree. So, no, thank you so much for being here with us, and hopefully we'll have a chance to connect, and hope you're set to have a great week.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, take care.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.
So good.